Greetings. This is David Lucier, the Superintendent of the Wellesley Public Schools, and I am pleased to be presenting the school department's FY21 budget proposal for your consideration. I'd like to begin by first reviewing the guidelines that framed our budget development. This included the town providing a guideline of a 3.5% increase along with an additional special education appropriation. Recognizing that the school department's regular education needs might exceed 3.5%, the school committee provided additional direction to the administration to model a 4.25% increase along with an appropriation for special education. Beyond our financial guidelines, the school committee also required that we meet our legal mandates, support our strategic plan goals, meet our regular and special education obligations, and seek to realize any savings to help offset new investments. Our budget architecture looks very similar to prior years, with our FY21 budget representing a primarily level service budget. New investments in both our strategic plan and other critical needs are very modest for FY21. Our budget drivers also remain consistent with prior years and include enrollment changes, compensation, funding special education, and strategic plan investments. We'll begin with enrollment. The major theme here is the continued decline at the elementary level. Between FY19 and FY20, our elementary enrollment declined by 81 students. At Wellesley Middle School, that decline was 24 students, and at Wellesley High School, we saw a slight increase of 6 students. This table illustrates the changes we expect to see in our enrollment in FY21, as well as placing these changes in a 10-year context. In FY21, we expect to see an additional decline of 34 students at the elementary level. This will result in a 10-year trending decline of just over 300 students. During that time, 10 elementary sections have been reduced. For FY21, we are projecting another 2 sections being reduced, bringing our total number of elementary sections to 105. For FY21, we expect to see modest declines at both the middle school and the high school. The 10-year trends at those schools reflects the larger populations moving out of the elementary levels and moving through the middle and high schools. Compensation is our next driver. The good news is that all of our collective bargaining agreements are in place through FY22. Our largest contract is with our teachers, or Unit A. This salary is increasing by 2% for each year of the 3-year contract. Approximately 41% of our staff are between Steps 1 and Step 15, with each step representing 1 year of experience. Nearly 60% of our staff are at the top step. Each step represents a 4.17% increase in salary. Special education is the next driver and represents the most highly variable area of our work. This is also an area of our work defined by specific federal and state mandates. This year, approximately 17%, or 838 of our students, will qualify for special education services, with 56 of those students receiving education in out-of-district placements. For FY21, we are forecasting a similar percentage of students qualifying for special education services, with 67 of those students in out-of-district placements. We are also forecasting a similar state reimbursement for qualified special education expenses, otherwise known as circuit breaker, coming in at 75%, though that number has not yet been finalized. Our overall anticipated net increase in special education spending is just over 7%. Here's how that approximate 7% increase breaks out. We are projecting that our in-district special education budget will increase by just under 5%. Our out-of-district expenses are also expected to increase by approximately $445,000, or nearly 5.7%. Our circuit breaker offset is expected to actually decrease because our FY20 budget included both carryover from FY19 as well as our FY20 reimbursement. We are not expecting to carry over any circuit breaker funds into FY21, hence the overall 6.34% decline in circuit breaker funds being projected for next year. Let's move on to our overall budget proposal for FY21. At a high level, you can see the bulk of our increase for next year is related to compensation. Just moving our current staff forward 1 year results in a nearly 3.5% increase. The additional dollars are for staffing changes we are proposing for FY21. We expect to see our expenses increase by approximately 10% in FY21. As I noted earlier, the separate special education appropriation to keep pace with our non-discretionary cost is $664,203. This next slide shows the distribution of our FY21 budget by major category. As you can see, our regular education instructional costs represent just over 65% of our budget. Student services, or special education, represents just under 1/3 of our budget. Operations represents just over 3.5% of our budget, and administration represents approximately 1.75% of our budget. This slide represents proposed personnel costs by level. For example, incremental increases in FTEs for level service at the middle school for world language, music, and drama based on projected student scheduling needs. We have also proposed a modest increase in our production center to close the gap between our staffing and needs from across the district. In terms of the strategic plan, we are proposing increases to help expand computer science offerings at the middle and high school, along with a modest increase to expand our support for the Middle School Scholars Program, which focuses on providing additional in-school supports to help close opportunity gaps, particularly among students of color. In our other critical needs category, we are proposing a teaching assistant at Bates to help support student supervision at lunch and recess that is no longer possible through the use of special education teaching assistants. This is the identical request at Honeywell in the next slide. Finally, we are proposing eliminating our testing coordinator stipend at Wellesley High School and replacing this with a full-time testing coordinator in order to more appropriately support the nearly 100 days of testing that occurs at Wellesley High School each year. Finally, we are also proposing a small increase to our assistant athletic director's time, which we have been scaling up over the last few years to help support the scope of our comprehensive athletic program. The final element of our budget is our cash capital budget, which is comprised of both technology and furniture, fixtures, and equipment. For FY21, along with other town departments, we were asked to make an approximately 25% reduction in our cash capital budget. This includes just over $50,000 for FF&E, as well as $770,000 for technology costs. As we look toward an uncertain FY21, with the schedule and program still yet to be defined due to the pandemic, we are likely to see additional adjustments to both our final FY20 budget as well as our proposed FY21 budget. As always, we remain grateful for our community's consistent support of the Wellesley Public Schools, both in the past and as we move forward. Thank you for your consideration.